Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And man, we got to talk about my favorite city and homeland, Chicago, Illinois again. I've done several YouTube videos on Chicago and the depth of the level of destruction that's taking place there. They have a major migrant crisis that's taking place and they don't know what they're doing. The federal government, the city and state, local government. But over the weekend, and it was not a holiday weekend. Normally there's an uptick in the number of crimes that take place in Chicago during the holiday weekends, which are supposed to be festive, loving, and family oriented. But it ends up with a high number of shootings and murders every holiday, whether it's Memorial Day weekend, Labor Day weekend, 4th of July, you name it, Thanksgiving, which is supposed to be a family-oriented holiday, and the hypocrisy that you find in these major cities is that young people are going out and committing crimes. Well, over the weekend, this past weekend in Chicago, there were a plethora of shootings and murders and robberies. You had a 15-year-old boy found in the trunk of a car that was burned and shot in the neck and 4 times throughout his body. Hideous, heinous, and terrible. You had a 13-year-old that was robbed and shot on the Red Line in Chicago. Another 13-year-old that was shot on the south side of Chicago. There were multiple teens, and listen to the ages, 13, 15, 12, that have been involved in either a victim of a crime, a heinous crime, or have been the perpetrators of heinous crimes. And Chicago is like the center point of America. Everybody loves to talk about New York City, but Chicago is right in the heart of the Midwest. And you have the Chicago Board of Trade, and you have all kind of corporate companies that are right there in Chicago. And Chicago has had plenty of entertainers and athletes that have become millionaires and billionaires. Oprah Winfrey, first black female billionaire, had her show in Chicago. First black athletic entertainer, athlete, Michael Jordan, made a name for himself in Chicago. Steve Harvey had his show in Chicago. Playboy started in Chicago. Earth, Wind, and Fire from the west side of Chicago. Shaka Khan. So Chicago has a Robert Townsend, the actor and director from Chicago. Bernie Mac from Chicago. So you can name an innumerable amount of individuals who have been from Chicago and have gone on to do great things. But in today's time, and let's not forget our first black president, whose base was out of Chicago, Barack Obama. Of course, none of these individuals have come back to try to help foster and build the health and welfare from a morality and ethical standpoint for Chicago. They all made their money, made their fame, and they took off. You don't hear anything from Barack Obama in his relationship to Chicago today. And if it wasn't for Chicago, he would have never been the first black president. But over the weekend, several people got shot, murdered. As I told you, a 15-year-old was found in the trunk of a red car, charred, burned, shot multiple times. 34-year-old Hispanic descent young lady on the northwest side got shot and killed by her ex-boyfriend in a domestic dispute. There was another young lady that was found in a pond with her car submerged and deceased. And Chicago, not to beat up on Chicago, but with it being at the epicenter of America and the nucleus in the center of America, is just a symbol of what's going on in these other major cities like Atlanta, Houston, Philadelphia, LA, Miami, St. Louis, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, where there's been an innumerable amount of black on black crimes, people that look like me, that look like my son, that look like my daughter, We are victimizing ourselves. There's gun violence, this increase in uptick in sex trafficking and drug trafficking, and this homogenized way of destroying each other like we're the children of the corn. This purging that's taking place. Chicago is just a tipping point of what's taking place across our entire country. But I like to talk about Chicago because I'm from there. It's my heart and my brethren and my breath of where my mother, who went to Farragut High School, and most of my family lives in Chicago. But we have to draw attention to this because it's killing Chicago. Chicago has a 25% corporate and business vacancy downtown, the Magnificent Mile area. Tourism is completely being affected by all of this crime and this heavy preponderance for violence that is taking place. People are running around like there are no laws or civility that's enacted in Chicago. Brandon Johnson, the mayor, decided to take on this migrant crisis, which is foolish. They just want the federal money, and they're not even taking care of the tax-paying citizens that live there. But there were innumerable amounts of crimes over this past weekend. It was not a holiday, with 13, 15, 17-year-olds, and look at the chronological or numerable number for these age groups. These young people are dying by the second, by the minute, by the hour. There's no forecast for the future. They're trying to survive day to day. It's almost as if Chicago has turned into a third world country inside of a first world nation. And we're supposed to be the most powerful country in the world. And we're not displaying that and reflecting and putting a mirror on the decimation and denigration that's taking place in these urban cities. So take a look at it. There was a ton of robberies, shootings. Two of them with a 13-year-old took place on the red line on the L. Public transportation has become an issue for the health and welfare of citizens trying to get to and from work or get home. St. Louis had a situation where a sitting municipal court judge who was wheelchair bound got assaulted. There's been several murders and assaults on the Metrolink here in St. Louis, and there's been a ton of them happening on the Chicago L train, the CTA bus. There was a few times I caught the bus. You have individuals talking to themselves. Mental illness is a real issue. The opioid crisis is a real issue, and it is putting a heavy burden on us having a civilized society here in America. And we need to have more voices talking about trying to make America a safe haven. And if you're black, that does not make you anti-black or pro-white or an Uncle Tom by wanting to have a safe place to live. This is unacceptable, and these liberal laws, of course, Chicago enacted the Safety Act in the state of Illinois, where minor crimes, you can have no bail and you can come back 30 days on your own to see if you're going to be sentenced or convicted of a minor crime, and who's going to come back if you committed a crime. If you have the mental capacity to commit a crime, who is going to go back to court to see if you got convicted for felony or misdemeanor or either jail time? Nobody's going to do it. So you're going to have a high no call, no show for court appearances. These liberal laws are hideous, and it's making America an unsafe place. These young people of color are living like they are the children of the corn, and in that movie, and there's a lot of symbolism and messages behind it, and it's being enacted in today's time. You have Black Lives Matter putting a stranglehold on our police forces. Defunding of police is not the answer. Chicago needs like 1,000 police officers. St. Louis, Missouri needs like 500. And I'm not an advocate for us policing ourselves. If you have a fire at your house, you call the fire department. If you get sick, you go to the hospital to see a doctor. If there's some criminal activity taking place in your house, in your neighborhood, you call the police. That's what they're there for. That's where our tax-paying dollars go to keep them employed. So take a look at the Chicago scenario. This was over the past weekend. Multiple shootings, multiple deaths. I pray for the 15-year-old young boy's family who was found in the trunk of a car that was burning, and he was shot multiple times and died. That's not what a 15-year-old should have to go through. A 15-year-old should be trying to learn as much as possible, be in school, doing the right thing, understanding the vestige of right and wrong, and building on his character and his narrative to be a good person. And many of these urban city youths are in chaos and disruption. A lot of this is starting off in the homes, where there are fatherless homes. There's no male mentorship, and many of these African American black women and mothers are dealing with way too much inside the home and outside the home, and they just don't have the capacity to raise these young boys to become men. It takes a man to raise a man, just like it takes a woman to raise a girl to become a woman. The animal kingdom understands that, and we as human beings who are supposed to be at the top of the food chain should understand that. There's too many fatherless black homes, and we need to have a narrative where teachers, police officers, fire chiefs, uncles, fathers are participating in the home life of these individuals. These kids are acting out in school. That is a moniker of how they are being raised in the home. And we need to do some self-reflection and change our desire for living life in a positive and more congruent and uphill rather than a downhill way. We are going completely downhill as a black race. When I walk out of the door, I'm not worried about a white cop shooting me. I am more concerned about somebody that looks like me or my son harming me if you live in these cities. And that's unfortunate. We need to love on each other more than hate on each other. So let's pray for Chicago. Let's hope that Chicago can get his act together. Let's manifest our truth in the right direction. If you enjoy this commentary, please share it with others. And thank you for listening to the Trevor Donald Experience.